Today I'm going to show you a dish off my tasting menu that's focused on the meadowy toasted flavours of hay infused into a rich potato mousse, and then that's paired with the earthy flavour of semi-dried beetroot that's marinated in birch sap and finished with a little fresh punchy concentrated blackcurrant. On the face of it, the dish looks quite simple and it comes together quite simply for service, but it has a beautiful complex flavour and it's comforting and nostalgic with its richness and these aromas of summer hay. So I'm going to walk you through everything, show you how I make the dish and the techniques that I use, and then you'll find all the detailed ingredients and amounts written down in the video description. Let's start off with the chewy birch sap and blackcurrant marinated beetroot that's going to be hidden underneath the hay potato mousse in the dish. This starts off with freezing my raw beetroot. And the process of freezing and then thawing the beetroot is one of the steps that's going to help to give this its really pleasing and chewy texture when it's finished. A bit like nice sticky roasted beetroot, but fortified with these flavours of birch sap and blackcurrant. So the beetroot gets frozen for 24 hours and then I simply let them defrost, and that starts off our process of working with them. Then I just slice away their skin before they get cooked. Once they've been cooked, the beetroot gets cut into smaller pieces and then they are ready to be semi-dried. So I do this in a dehydrator on a medium to low setting, but equally it should work well just in a low oven. So now we're ready to marinate the beetroot. I'll come to the birch element of this in a moment because that's one of my favourite processes and ingredients, but let's start by looking at the blackcurrant. This is just pure organic blackcurrant juice, and then I'm going to reduce and really concentrate this. I'm going to do a cold reduction of this in the Rotavap, which is a piece of equipment that pops up intermittently on here. If you've watched a few of my videos, you've probably seen it already, but it's basically a piece of equipment that in food and drink at least is mainly used for cold distilling. You can drop the pressure within these machines, and because liquids boil at a lower temperature at lower pressures, that's going to let me boil and reduce and concentrate my blackcurrant while barely heating it up above room temperature. So I get to keep all the fresh vibrancy of the blackcurrant flavour, but concentrate it. The other half of our marinade for the semi-dried beetroot is a birch sap syrup, which is a fantastic wild food preparation that I make each spring. I have a whole video that goes into the process of how you make this in detail, so I'll put a link to that down in the video description, but I will just cover it quite briefly here. Just as the winter turns to spring, birch trees start producing this beautiful, subtly sweet sap, which we can carefully and responsibly tap a little of. There's more to the process and how to do it well that I cover in my other video, but essentially we collect this birch sap and then we can reduce that down to make this incredibly flavourful syrup. It's quite a similar process to how maple syrup is made, but with a more savoury flavour that has these nice toasted notes of wood, black tea and vanilla. Overall, I think that combining the flavours from the birch sap with blackcurrant and the aromatics of hay gives you this dish that ends up being reminiscent of the British countryside in the summer. So to finish off the beetroot, we're going to marinate it in a mixture of half our birch sap syrup and half that blackcurrant reduction. The woodiness of the birch really complements the earthy beetroot flavour, but then you need that punch of freshness and fruit from the blackcurrant to kind of balance it all and bring it together. And then finally that marinade just gets seasoned with just a dash of the liquid from fermenting sauerkraut. That gives us a little bit of salt, a bit of savouriness and umami, and just adds that finishing complexity and seasoning to the marinade. So now that our beetroot is marinating, next up I can show you the potato mousse, which is a really useful and versatile technique. The mousse is very rich, but it doesn't use any dairy. So this is a really versatile, adaptable technique that just happens also to be vegan. I did a version of this that was infused with truffle when I was invited to do a pop-up restaurant in Mexico City, and it was ideal for that because it's such a reliable technique. This version is infused with hay, which is not a flavour that most people will have maybe had in food, but it's still such a recognisable, comforting, nostalgic aroma that it works particularly well with the richness of the mousse. So to start preparing this, we need to infuse that flavour of hay into our oil. I'm using really nice organic hay that I get from a friend, and I'm going to place this into a vacuum bag along with my mild oil. Then these get vacuum packed, and they're going to get cooked together in the water bath for 12 hours at 60 degrees for the hay to really nicely infuse in. After that, when I strain the oil, it has these lovely toasted, grassy, soft, warm notes that work great with the flavour of potato and the rest of the dish. Then I'm also going to lightly smoke the oil, and it makes sense to do that using hay as well, I think. So I'm going to do this in a blender using a small handheld smoking gun. Then I can direct the smoke into the blender where I have my oil. I just have the blender running on low so that it's moving the oil and just making sure that it all gets nicely evenly exposed to that flavour. Next up, we can cook our potato ready to make the mousse, which really couldn't be simpler. I just boil peeled Maris Piper potatoes until they are completely soft, and then combine them with my prepared hay oil and a little salt in the blender. And then that's going to get blended really well for 6 or 7 minutes until the potatoes are completely smooth and silky, and we get this finished rich potato puree infused with the flavours of hay. Then that can go into a whipping siphon ready for service, and I hold it at 85 degrees, its serving temperature, in a water bath so that it's completely ready to go just as soon as I need it. And the dish itself comes together really simply in the end, with our marinated beetroot along with just a little of its dressing being placed into the bottom of a dish, and then the dishes go in the oven just to be warmed through. Once the dishes and the beetroot have come out of the oven, my hay potato mousse is already hot and ready for me, so this can just be simply dispensed over the top. Then lastly, I just put a little sprinkle of dried beetroot over the top, and that's really the only kind of hint of the other flavours that are hidden underneath that you get when this comes to the table. So that's the dish. Very simple in its appearance, but quite a lot of work behind the scenes in how it all comes together. It's comforting in its flavours, but made with ingredients that many of my guests won't have tasted before. And it's rich and indulgent, but just made with plants. So I hope if you found this interesting, you might want to look at some of my other videos about techniques that I use, or some of the other wild foods that I work with. Or maybe some of the other full dishes from my tasting menu. There's videos on quite a few of them up now on the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.